Good day to you from the Newberry Church of Christ. Today I'd like for us to look at the book of Hebrews. I think Hebrews is one of the best books that I can see in God's Word. It's one of the best books when we look at the Old Testament and the New Testament, because what it does, it allows us to see the bridge between the old and the new. The old law that God gave to the Hebrews was a great law. It was the best. It was a law that was to lead them to the fulfillment of one of the promises to Abraham. That is, that through his seed, all the nations of the earth would be blessed. That promise we read about in Genesis 18:18. And we see that the Hebrew brethren, there in the first century, in Acts 2, we find the first of the 3,000 of the Jewish people accepted Christianity. And they answered the call. And it says that there was 3,000 that baptized and was added to the Lord's church. Afterwards, there was many more. Matter of fact, historians tell us that by the time of 70 A.D., again, there was half the population was Christians. They was Christians, but they suffered because there were some people that looked at them that they had deserted their family religion, because they looked and said, "No, you are Jews. You are Jews." Well, they was Jews or Hebrews or Israelites, all the same people. But the thing about it is, they had came to realize there was something better. In the book of Hebrews, we can see the key word is better. In the very first chapter of that book, it talks about Jesus, and it talks about how much better he is than the angels. Look at verse 4. It says, having became so much better than the angels, as he has by inheritance obtained a more excellent name than they. The key word that we find all through Hebrews is trying to tell the Hebrews that Christianity, through Christ, they are better off than they was before, starting there in the very first chapter. Then it goes on, and I'd love to just be able to read the whole book to you, but we don't have time. But look at chapter 7. Look at chapter 7, if you would. It says there in chapter 7, verse 19, for the law made nothing perfect. On the other hand, there is the bringing of a better hope through which we draw near to God. We have now a better hope than they did. We have a better, why? Verse 22 of chapter 7. By so much more, Jesus had became a what? A sharer of a better covenant. We had the old covenant, but the new covenant is so much better. In the book of Hebrews, you find the word better directly in chapter 1, chapter 7, chapter 8, chapter 9, chapter 11. All of these you see which says that Jesus is so much better than the other. We need to realize that Jesus is, the Old Testament was God's law. Jesus came to fulfill that law. Jesus came and the law was there, and for a while there was people that was worshiping according to the old covenant. In Acts, we find that the church was established, but at the same time the tabernacle, the temple was still there. The temple was still there. But did you know there was going to be a time when the temple was not going to be there? Matter of fact, in Hebrews, I think the heart or the key verse in the book of Hebrews is in chapter 8, verse 13, where he says this, in that he says, a new covenant. He made the first what? He made the first old. He made the first old, well, he says obsolete. in the New King James. He made the first one obsolete. Why? Obsolete. I like that word, obsolete. Not that it didn't work, but we look at the Model T. It was a great automobile. But the Model T compared to the new Fords today, we would have to say would be obsolete when it comes to traveling and doing. The Old Testament was good, but it had become obsolete. It says this. It says, now what is become obsolete and growing old is ready to vanish away. The old law was ready to vanish away. It was fulfilled. In the Old Testament law, the priest was there. The sacrifice was there. Near the time of Christ, the priest, the sacrifice was there. But it was getting ready to vanish away. And we know that it did. It says here, it was soon. In 70 A.D., the Roman army came in and destroyed the temple. Destroyed the temple, destroyed the record book, destroyed the utensils, burnt the temple, and then tore it apart to get the gold from the bricks and the blocks in between, fulfilling the prophecy of the Old Testament. But see, destroying. Earlier, when they went into Babylonian captivity, hundreds of years before, the Babylonians came in and took all the records and kept them with them so that when Nehemiah and Ezra went back, they could take that with them. But the Romans came in and totally destroyed. Some people said, well, they're going to build the temple back in Jerusalem. They might build a building back, but it will not be the temple of God because they cannot have the priest. Nobody knows who is a Leviticus priest. But we don't need a Leviticus priest because we have a priest, and our priest is Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Read the book of Hebrews. Take your highlighter and a pencil and write down where you find the word better, better. Some people today are trying to go back and say, well, we have to do this. They in the Old Testament, we have to do this. No, why do we need to go back to an obsolete, antique religion? I'm a New Testament Christian. How about yourself? God be with you till we meet again.